This is Taiwan Insider, a weekly news roundup brought to you by Radio Taiwan International.
Every week, we bring you an inside look at the biggest and most interesting stories coming out of Taiwan. I'm Shirley Lin, sitting in for Natalie So.
And I'm Andrew Ryan, and here's your Week in a Minute.
Hong Kong has been rocked by demonstrations against a bill that would allow for Hong Kongers to be extradited to China. President Tsai voiced her support for the protesters, saying the voices of Hong Kong's people should be respected. The DPP has announced that President Tsai will be its candidate in next year's presidential election, knocking former Premier William Lai out of the race. The party made the announcement after several days of telephone polling. The fall armyworm, an agricultural pest, has reached Taiwan. The pest is believed to have been blown over from the Asian mainland. The consequences for Taiwan's agriculture could be severe since it destroys a number of major crops. The Taoyuan Flight Attendant Union has voted to allow members working for EVA Air to strike. However, the union says it's open to negotiations and a strike will not necessarily happen. Several entertainers have taken to social media to raise awareness about leopard cats. That's after the Miaoli County Council rejected a bill aimed at protecting the endangered species. The celebrities are now backing a petition to stop a development that will be built in the leopard cat's habitat. And that's your Week in a Minute.
Each week at the top of the show, we each choose a word that represents what we are thinking about in terms of the news. Now, Shirley, why don't we start with you this week?
All right. Well, here we go.
All right.
Let me do this slowly.
Worry. Women. Work? No. Oh, it is worrisome.
A longer version of worry.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, with what's going on in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong protest, the extradition bill, and then the fall army worms that are attacking our crops.
Here in Taiwan, no.
Yes, and that worries me.
Oh my goodness, as if we didn't have enough to worry about, now we have to worry about bugs.
I know.
All right, you ready for my word?
Okay.
All right.
Oh, that's the E, right. Exile. No, can't be. Extreme, no, extradition.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a long word, and usually we don't think about this word until it affects us. Now, the people of Hong Kong are thinking about the word extradition because there's a new bill which we are going to talk to you about that is connected to this. Basically, it's where a person is taken from one country to another country where they are either accused or convicted of a crime. So in today's Taiwan Insider, we'll be talking about this new bill and the massive protests which we've seen in Hong Kong. And also we'll talk about Taiwan's reaction and why you should care about this bill.
And as for Taiwan by number, we're going to be talking about Taiwan's lucrative wedding photo industry.
Excellent. That's definitely something that I don't have to be worried about.
Mm-hmm.
And also today we have for you this.
Now that looks like a dolphin.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, what do you think this dolphin is made from and where this picture is located? Well, we're going to be having those answers for you at the end of the show.
We turn now to our top story today. Massive crowds have gathered in the streets of Hong Kong to protest against a proposed extradition bill that would pave the way for sending criminals, people who are accused or suspected of a crime, from Hong Kong to China. Now, observers say that the protests are some of the largest that Hong Kong has seen since the handover to China in 1997.
In just a moment, we're going to be talking about why this story is so important and its connection to Taiwan. But first, we're going to have a look at how the protest began.
Over 1 million people hit the streets of Hong Kong on Sunday to protest a proposed Chinese extradition law. That figure, an estimate of organizers, represents about 1/7 of the city's population of 7.5 million. The protests began in the afternoon with a 3-kilometer march to Hong Kong's Legislative Council building. The crowd didn't disperse until the early hours of Monday morning. At stake was a bill that would allow authorities to extradite suspects from Hong Kong to China. Hong Kong officials say they would have the final say over who gets extradited. Critics say the law opens the door for Chinese authorities to poach political and business adversaries. They say that it would essentially cancel Hong Kong's semi-autonomous status. Also, the law would not only apply to Hong Kong residents, anyone who passes through Hong Kong would be subject to extradition to China without the guarantee of a fair trial. Protesters say the law is not in the interest of the city's people. They say that local leaders are merely following the wishes of Beijing.
More importantly, Hong Kong government and the Chinese government are not on an equal footing. So if Chinese government like make a promise to Hong Kong and say, oh, we would not extradite political dissident, we would ensure fair trial, and if the Hong Kong government extradite its people, its citizen, back to China, and China breach its promise, there's nothing Hong Kong government can do. So there is no way that Hong Kong citizens should trust the Chinese government and the Hong Kong government.
It's not just Hong Kongers that are worried. Members of the expat business community are also concerned about the extradition law.
Well, we obviously remember all the things happening in Beijing with the two Canadians that were sort of picked up in response to the CFO of Huawei being arrested. People are really, well, people like myself, expats, are really cautious about this type of thing, thinking that China could actually come and impose those type of tit-for-tat kind of arrests without warrant, really. So people are really worried about that.
Even though protesters dispersed by Monday morning, they returned ahead of a debate scheduled at the Legislative Council on Wednesday. The debate has since been postponed, but the city's chief executive has said they will vote on and pass the bill by June 20th. Violent clashes broke out between police and protesters. About 5,000 riot police used tear gas, pepper spray, and rubber bullets to clear tens of thousands of protesters. At least 79 were injured in the clashes, with 2 in serious condition.
Now, we want to remind you that this story is still evolving. Now, we're taping this show on Thursday, June 13th. So by the time you're watching this, things may have changed. We'd like to urge you to come back to RTI for updates.
Now, the name of the bill, and I'm going to read this because it's rather long, Fugitive Offenders and Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters Legislation Amendment Bill 2019.
Wow.
Now, what exactly does this proposed law do?
Okay, so right now, Hong Kong has extradition agreements with about 20 other countries, including the United States, the UK. What this bill would do is it would allow extradition requests from other places, namely China, Taiwan, and Macau. So what does it cover? It covers suspects who are accused of crimes like murder, rape, and polygamy, so bigger crimes. Also, it would be offenses with a maximum sentence of at least 7 years in prison. What does it not cover? This is very interesting too. It does not cover 9 different types of commercial offenses, so things like tax evasion or bankruptcy. Also, they say that it doesn't cover political or religious crimes. Now, the Hong Kong courts and the chief executive would have the final say in who gets extradited, but I should remind you that the chief executive is seen as a pro-Beijing position.
So why are people so concerned about this proposed law?
Well, there are several things to be concerned about. One is that it would apply to everyone who is on Hong Kong soil. So that includes citizens, it includes foreign residents, people who are there for business, and even tourists would be, this would apply to them as well. Now, when the British returned Hong Kong to China in 1997, it was done under the understanding that it would operate under the one country, two systems formula. Now, essentially, that gives Hong Kong judicial and political autonomy. However, the passage of this bill would erode that judicial autonomy. Now, critics say that China could use the bill to also go after political or religious dissidents who would be tried under different crimes. There's also concern that people who are extradited would not face a fair trial in China.
Now, the international community has spoken out against the bill. So can you explain about that?
Yeah, sure. Now, the United States, Canada, the EU, the UK, they've all spoken out against it. They're concerned about the legislation. They're concerned about how it will impact their citizens on Hong Kong soil. And also, they're worried about the impact on business confidence in Hong Kong.
Now, a lot of people here in Taiwan have also spoken out against the bill, right?
Yes, that's correct. People all across the political spectrum have spoken out against it. And what's interesting is that Hong Kong has said that they proposed the bill to actually help Taiwan. Now, the origins of the bill and the reason why they're proposing it now can be traced back to a very brutal murder case that took place in Taiwan. And in fact, that's the subject of today's Taiwan Explained. In today's Taiwan Explained, I'm going to tell you about how a murder case in Taiwan prompted the push for a new extradition bill in Hong Kong.
All right, well, Andrew, you've got exactly 60 seconds.
Okay.
So, are you ready?
First, a little warning. I want to mention that the case we're going to talk about is a gruesome one. So if you're not into that, you can fast forward about 60 seconds. All right.
All right. So here we go. Ready, get set, go.
Okay, in February of 2018, a young Hong Kong man allegedly murdered his girlfriend while on holiday in Taiwan. He then fled back to Hong Kong, where he is currently behind bars for stealing his girlfriend's money and property. Now, Hong Kong officials cannot prosecute him for the murder, even though he confessed to the crime. And they cannot extradite him to Taiwan because there's no extradition agreement. And also, he may be released as soon as October. Now, Hong Kong's chief executive says the Taiwan murder case has set the clock ticking. We don't want the suspect to escape. But Taiwan officials say that that's just an excuse to pass the legislation. Now, a Taiwan official says, without the removal of threat to Taiwan nationals, we will not agree to the case-by-case transfer proposed by the Hong Kong authorities. That official says that Taiwanese people worry about becoming the next Ing-wen, a Taiwanese democracy activist who disappeared in China more than 2 years ago and is currently in a Chinese prison for subverting state power.
That was perfect, Andrew.
Thank you, Shirley.
Well, thanks, Andrew. And that's Taiwan Explained for the week.
Now, the events in Hong Kong have been a very important news story here in Taiwan for another reason, and that is because Beijing has proposed in the past using the formula of one country, two systems as a way of ruling Taiwan. Now, of course, that's a very controversial subject because Taiwan is ruled separately from China and has its own government. Now, it is election season here in Taiwan, so let's have a look at how the candidates have responded to the news in Hong Kong.
So we're going to start with the ruling party, the Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP. Now, President Ing-wen said Taiwan will support Hong Kong, but must also protect itself. She said the only thing one country, two systems has achieved is the complete deprivation of the Hong Kong people's freedom and rights in the last 22 years.
Now, just today, the DPP has confirmed that President Tsai will be the party's presidential candidate in the upcoming elections. Another person that we have our eye on is independent Taipei Mayor Wen-je. Let's have a look at what he said. The protests said it all. He said that if one country, two systems was applied to Taiwan in the same way as it's applied to Hong Kong, Taiwanese people would not accept it. Now let's have a look at the responses from the Kuomintang, which is the main opposition party. That's the KMT, which is considered to have a more conciliatory approach toward China.
First, we have the establishment candidate, former mayor of New Taipei City, Eric Zhu, who said Hong Kong's present will not be Taiwan's future. We have never considered one country, two systems as a viable option ever. Thank goodness we avoided another Tiananmen Square.
Now, the man behind the components inside your iPhone, that's Foxconn founder Terry Kuo. He is also running for president, and he also responded to the events in Hong Kong. Let's have a look at what he said. Hong Kong's one country, two systems has failed. So as you can see, no mincing of words there.
And then there's Kaohsiung Mayor Han Kuo-yu, failed to come up with an immediate response, though. He said simply, I don't know.
So that's a look at how presidential candidates responded to the news in Hong Kong. Up next, let's have a look at what people are saying on the internet in #Taiwan.
This week on #Taiwan, Hong Kong protests and what social media had to say about mainstream media coverage in Taiwan.
Now, lately, there's been a big discussion here in Taiwan about Chinese investment in the local media. And that's a particular concern because it could prevent certain types of stories from reaching the Taiwan market. Let's have a look at our first tweet. Now, Sohim says that at about 9 p.m. on Sunday, that not one major news channel in Taiwan was reporting on the protests in Hong Kong, not even in the news ticker. Sohim says these media outlets are preventing audiences from seeing what's happening in the world. Sad and shameful.
And Na responds saying, it's the same in China. Not a single article on Weibo, which is like the Chinese equivalent to Twitter. To a certain degree, the Taiwan media is already like the Chinese media.
Now, other people on Twitter were also observing the mainstream media, hoping to keep them accountable. Let's have a look at what they said.
Tricky Taipei says, I'm diving onto the sword and watching Zhongtian or CTI News. Starting at 8:18, so far only Taiwan News. Mostly entertainment or culture segments, a few spun into Han angles.
And of course, Han is Kaohsiung Mayor Han Kuo-yu, who is a favorite of that TV channel, which is also seen as pro-China.
Okay, so someone else Googled news stories about Hong Kong to see how many they could find. Pengqi says 2 articles each on Liberty Times and United Daily News, 1 each on SET News, Up Media, and ET Today, and none on China Times.
And I think we can actually point out that China Times and CTI are the same company.
But one news outlet was head and shoulders above the rest. And that's Apple Daily, which actually originated in Hong Kong and is now Taiwan's top circulation newspaper. They had 6 stories on the Hong Kong protests over a span of 5 hours on Sunday.
Now, one person on Twitter even posted a video of himself flipping through the China Times. Pierre-Yves Bobry says, how to bury a news by China Times, and here is the video he posted.
So he starts from page 1, and it's not there, but you see the dragon boat races there. Big picture of it. Okay, then to the, what's that now? The 5th and the 6th page? You know, the 3rd and the 4th page, you don't see it. Nope.
Still nothing there.
No,
oh, still flipping.
Still flipping, and
it's deep.
It looks like it's in page 9 and at the very bottom.
Now, if you're looking for English language coverage here in Taiwan of the events in Hong Kong, you can go to Focus Taiwan. You can also check out the great work by Ketagalan Media and New Bloom. We'll have the links for you in our show notes. That's it for today's Hashtag Taiwan. Be sure to connect with us on social media and leave a comment below.
Up next, Taiwan by Number. In today's Taiwan by Number, we're going to touch on something more on the bright side.
Yes.
Now, about the wedding industry, okay, it's a big money-making business. And around the world, you know, there's a lot of photo taking, of course, but there's also catering, event planning, to jewelry buying.
Yes,
but
you can make a ton of money in the wedding industry.
Absolutely. Yep. But in Taiwan, the huge focus is on the professional photo taking of the wedding. But it's actually, you know, how those huge, heavy, bounded albums that they put all these wedding photos inside.
Yes.
You know, they usually would make an appointment with the photographer way ahead of time and then get all these pictures done. But they would change the clothes many times, and they can choose to have the photos taken in the studio or outside in a famous spot or something like that. So it's really a big deal in Taiwan. But first of all, though, we're gonna I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay, this is the part where Shirley quizzes me.
Yes, I'm going to ask you for a number. Now,
okay.
Can you guess the total cost of planning a wedding for these newlyweds, which includes photo shoots, okay, and the banquet itself, the venue, and all that kind of stuff? Just a rough number, and you can just guess the number in new Taiwan dollars.
Okay. So essentially what Shirley is doing is she's asking an unmarried person to guess how much it costs to get married.
You can do it.
Okay, total.
Total.
Banquet, photos, props.
The whole shebang.
The whole kit and caboodle, as they say.
Yes.
I'm going to say 200,000 Taiwan dollars.
We'll have the answer for you in a second, but first let's watch this really cute video of these elderly couples taking their very first wedding photos in their 80s.
For 5 couples in Yunlin County, this is a big day. Decades after they got married, they're finally getting the chance to put on suits and wedding gowns and have some photos taken. All of these people are now in their 80s and missed the chance to have a wedding photo shoot when they were first married. A group of vocational students majoring in fashion has helped make it all possible. These students have made up the brides. For some of these ladies, it's their very first time putting on makeup. The students also prepared bouquets of handmade roses for the occasion. At the end, the photographer takes pictures of the grooms kissing the brides on the cheek. They may no longer be newlyweds, but these photos capture something even greater, memories of a lifetime together.
Oh, Shirley, that is just about the cutest video I think I've seen in a long
Isn't it?
time.
Yes, it's just so cute.
I love the part where she she puts the veil out of her face. Oh, it's so sweet.
All right. Well, before the video, I had asked you, what's the average cost of having a wedding in Taiwan? And now we're going to see the exact answer.
Okay. Whoa, $750,000. I was way off, Shirley.
You were.
I said 200,000. That's like 3 times as much.
Right. So in US dollars, that's 24,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa. I'm going to think twice.
I know.
3 times about getting married.
Well, anyway, the wedding photo taking is a part that costs quite a lot, okay, in all this. Now, the history behind it is that it began during the Japanese occupation period, which was from 1895 to 1945. Back then, photo studios offered the service of taking wedding photos, and the practice just kind of developed from there.
Okay.
So in the 1950s, 80% of all wedding photos of newlyweds took place in the studios.
Oh, it's in the wedding studios. That's where they actually took the photos.
Right,
okay,
right.
I see.
And so the business became so popular that it's really spread to other countries like China, Hong Kong, Macau, and Singapore and other countries in the 70s.
Wow. So actually this got its start perhaps in Taiwan and spread through Asia. Like I know now people will actually fly to Taiwan from places like Malaysia and Hong Kong to get their photos done in Taiwan, to go to Sun Moon Lake or go to the beaches of Kunming. Well, fascinating. Well, thank you so much. And that was today's Taiwan by Number. And finally today, we are going to leave you with a parting shot. Let's have a look at a photo that we showed you at the top of our show.
Now, we asked you what this dolphin is made from and where this is located.
Can you figure it out? We'll have the answer for you today, right now, in our parting shot. Let's have a look. This dolphin is an art installation created on a beach at the Gaomei wetlands in central Taiwan. And what is it made from? Tree branches, plastic bottles, and garbage bags. It's just part of the 5 tons of garbage that volunteers found in a recent beach cleanup. The volunteers created the dolphin to raise awareness of the pollution on many beaches in Taiwan.
Now, it's worth mentioning that the Gaomei wetlands usually look much nicer than this. The mixture of sand and soil spans 1,500 acres along the western coastline of Taichung City and is home to a large number of animal species, making it a favorite spot for local residents, bird watchers, and of course, photographers. Now, isn't that just beautiful?
It is beautiful, isn't it?
So romantic.
You can get your wedding photos taken there.
Yes.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this edition of Taiwan Insider. Be sure to connect with us on social media and leave a comment below.
Also, check out the show notes below for more information. For Taiwan Insider, I'm Shirley Lin.
And I'm Andrew Ryan. See you next week.